everyone, to the Apoco-Larry podcast. I'm Steve. He is
Larry.
Yep. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not. It's just a simple statement of who I am.
Yeah. Well, there's things here that give me trouble. So I thought the doctor didn't want to. I didn't want to go doctor with these things. I'm having issues with the dating of this stuff.
Okay.
There are people who believe that the Philistines came over as the sea peoples in about the 1200s, but the people I'm reading now are putting the dating of this, putting Othniel down around 1350. So maybe 100 and something years before the Philistines. Some say the Philistines came over, but the Philistines are there when they're doing this stuff.
Yeah.
So I started thinking maybe they came over in the midst of this, but it's sometimes hard to place all this. This last thing I read, remember I said this is about a 360-year period.
Yep.
The last thing I read said it's about a 336-year period. So we're pretty close on that, but when it started and when it finished, because it's got to finish. Remember, King David was about 1,000, right?
Okay.
So it's got to finish before King Saul, and even before Samuel. So it's got to finish in the 1100s.
Right. Because Samuel's
before BC.
Right. Because Samuel's technically the last judge, right?
Yes, Samuel is the last judge. Remember, they asked him to be king, and he has that story about the different trees and all the trees that are useful for their fruit and other things go, I don't need to be king because I actually am useful. And then the bramble bush says, hey, I got nothing to offer. I might as well be king. Samuel had a good wit.
yeah, that's right. That's right. And Samuel was talking about leadership books from that will be produced in the 2000s.
So the guys I'm reading are still putting Othniel and Ehud, 1350 down to 1300 down, beyond that.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where we are right now. So I'll let you read.
Okay, folks, we're in chapter 3. I will warn you that I will butcher. What? Butcher is what I'm trying to say. Wow, that's not even a Freudian slip.
You even butchered the word butcher.
I butchered the word butcher. I will butcher many names in this, but I'll give it a go at least. Chapter 3, starting at verse 1. These are the nations the Lord left to test the Israelites who had not experienced any of the wars in Canaan. He did this only to teach warfare to the descendants of the Israelites who had not had previous battle experience. It's an interesting little aside there.
Yeah, strange, eh?
The 5 rulers of the Philistines, all the Canaanites, the Sidonians, the Hivites, the Sidonians. That's in Arizona, right? No, that's Sedona. Yeah. Never mind. The Hivites living in Lebanon, in the Lebanon mountains, from Mount Baal, Hermon, to Lebo Hamath, were left to test the Israelites to see whether or not they would obey the Lord's commands, which he had given their ancestors through Moses. The Israelites lived among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. They took their daughters in marriage and gave their own daughters to their sons and served their gods.
Okay, so that would have been evil.
Whoops.
Right? At this point in time, the Israelites were not supposed to go around and marry all these other women from all these places, and they did. Yeah.
Yep. Oh well, just another day in Israel. Anyway, verse 7. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals, as it was just said in verse 5, and the Asherahs. The anger of the Lord
burnt. So the Baals, the Asherahs would be the female side of that.
Oh.
Right? Yeah. So Asherah, somebody compared them. If you want to compare them, you'd compare them to Diana or Venus or those female gods.
Yep. Yep.
And the Baals were the male lords, and Baal means conqueror.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Baal is conqueror, and then Nike is the Greek for conqueror as well. Yeah.
And they made a darn good shoe at the time. So
I've heard that. I've also heard that some of their shoes are not as
Yeah,
good
yeah,
as. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But nobody wanted to wear a shoe called Baal or Asherah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Well, it's too many letters.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Those are some
Yeah.
mighty fine
Or
bales you're
Asher.
wearing.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress. The anger of the Lord burned against Israel so that he sold them into the hands of the Cushan, oh, king of Aram. It's a
Yeah.
long name. Just bear with me, folks. To whom the Israelites were subject to for 8 years. As we'll see, and Larry will point this out, but when they cried out to the Lord, he raised up for them a deliverer, Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. Ah, interesting. Who saved them. The Spirit of the Lord came on him, so that he became Israel's judge and went to war. The Lord gave the king of Aram into the hands of Othniel, who overpowered him, so the land had peace for 40 years until Othniel, son of Kenaz, died.
Yeah. So now these guys are way down in the south.
Mm,
Remember, Israel is 12 separate tribes at this time.
right?
They don't become a nation until Saul and then David.
Okay.
And Solomon. That's when they become a total nation. And then after Solomon, Rehoboam and Jeroboam split it into a divided nation. But they're not a nation yet. They're 12 separate tribes, and so he's delivering the southern portion right now, and he's Caleb. You remember who Caleb was? Of course,
Right. One of the two, not one
one
of
of
the
the two.
10.
Yeah. Joshua, and Caleb.
Yeah.
Were the two spies that came back and said, "No, we can take these people."
Yeah. We got this. Come on.
Yes. And Joshua got to have the control of the nation, the terrible job, and Caleb got to have a beautiful, piece of land for himself. Which I think at about 80 years old, he had to take over that land.
Mm.
And they suggest he still had the strength of a young man when he did it,
Hmm.
which is very interesting as well. So when Othniel took this over, then that brought peace to, and nobody's specific on exactly which tribes, but he brought peace for 40 years.
Hmm.
And again, just like you said, God allows the nations to destroy Israel or to oppress Israel until they cry out to him, and then he raises his judge. But then after the 40 years, Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died, and Israel goes back and does evil again.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
Verse 12 now, folks. Sorry, I'm just trying to get it all on the screen so Larry and I can see it. Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. And because they did this evil, the Lord gave Eglon, king of Moab, power over Israel, getting the Amorites and the Amalekites good enough, to join him. The king came and attacked Israel, and they took possession of the city of Palms. The Israelites were subject to the king of Moab for 18 years. Again,
So you get this one now, and if you'll remember, Moab is in the south of Israel as well, off to the west side of the south, I think.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go, west and east? Which way is east? Yeah, no, east side of the south, and Moab, you'll recall, that's the son of Lot.
Mm.
So Ammon and Moab, the Moabites and the Ammonites, those they're the two sons of Lot. So these are relatives,
Huh.
right? Yeah, and their king. You're gonna like this because Eglon was a very fat man. So it's Ehud is the left-handed guy that delivered. I don't know why being left-handed. Whenever a guy's left-handed, they mention it.
Yeah.
And they had so many left-handed sling guys who used a sling.
Yeah.
Oh, how good I would be.
Yeah, left-handed guy. Okay, well then I guess I better read 15 then, because here we are.
Yeah.
Again, the Israelites cried out to the Lord, and he gave them a deliverer, Ehud, a left-handed man. Like Larry says, why point this out? But other than the fact that the right hand is the hand of blessing, right? And the left hand, sorry, you've been judged. The son of Gera, the Benjamite. The
So you get
Israelite,
a little bit of an idea that it's Benjamin that he's Benjamin's the tribe of Benjamin that he's delivering
right,
their land, their area.
right. The Israelites sent him with tribute to Eglon, the king of Moab. Now Ehud made a double-edged sword about a cubit long, which he strapped to his right thigh under his clothing. That must have felt a little weird to try to walk with that, by the way.
Yeah.
He
About a foot
presented,
and a half.
yeah, yeah.
I think. Scroll down there, Steve. It'll tell us.
Okay. Shamar. 18 inches or 45 centimeters. Look at Larry.
Yeah, foot and a half.
Brilliant. Where was I? Verse 17 now. He presented the tribute to Eglon, the king of Moab, who was a very fat man. We're not being judgmental. It's right in the text.
Yeah.
After Ehud presented the tribute, he sent on their way those who had carried it. But upon reaching the stone images near Gilgal, he himself went back to Eglon and said, Your Majesty, I have a secret message for you. This will be special. The king said to his attendants, Leave us, and they all left. Ehud approached him while he was sitting alone in the upper room of his palace, and said, I have a message from God for you. As the king rose from his seat, Ehud reached with his left hand, drew the sword from his right thigh, and plunged it into the king's belly. So he reached across his body to do this.
Yes, and I think part of the trick is if you're left-handed, remember you used to shake hands with your right hand because most people were right-handed, and when you shook hands,
Right.
that meant you couldn't hold a weapon. And so there's that little bit of a trick there.
Oh, I get you now. See, this context means everything. He reached with his left hand, drew the sword from his right thigh, and plunged it into the king's belly. Even the handle sank in after the blade, and his bowels discharged. Wow! Just a little bit graphic here. Ehud did not pull the sword out, and the fat closed in over it. Then Ehud went out to the porch. He shut the doors of the upper room behind him and locked them. After he had gone, the servants came and found the doors of the upper room locked. They said he must be relieving himself in the inner room of the palace. Sure. They waited till the point of embarrassment, which I've waited to that point several times. But when he did not open the doors of his room, they took a key and unlocked them, and they saw their lord fallen on the floor dead. While they waited, Ehud got away. He passed by the stone images and escaped to Sarah. When he arrived there, he blew a trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went down with him from the hills, with him leading them. Follow me, he ordered, for the Lord has given Moab, your enemy, into your hands. So they followed him down, took possession of the fjords, here I'll say it like a Norwegian, the fjords of the Jordan that led to Moab, and they allowed no one to cross over. At that time they struck down about 10,000 Moabites, all vigorous and strong, not one escaped. That day Moab was made subject to Israel, and the land had peace for 80 years.
Yeah, remember? So under Othniel, they had peace for 40 years. Now this could be the same tribe, but it could also be a different tribe.
Okay.
And under Ehud, they would have had peace again for 80 years. And but that's an amazing thing that they killed 10,000 Moabites.
Yeah.
And that they would have been just completely lost without their king. But their king sounds useless.
Yeah.
You know?
Like what the?
Yeah, and so you can only say that it was God delivering them, right?
Yeah.
And God delivered them.
Yeah.
And peace for 80 years, that's a long time, man.
Yeah.
That's I don't think our countries have had peace for 80. Well, Canada probably, but we've been to. When was the last World War? Oh, that would have been more than 80 years ago.
Yeah, and we participated in Korea, so.
Yeah, we were in Korea in 53.
So yeah, I guess it has been 70 at least, right? 75.
Yeah.
But.
So it's been we've had a lot of. That's a long period of peace, I think. Yeah. And then the last guy is Shamgar.
Shamgar, how could we miss you? You only get one verse. Sorry, Shamgar. After Ehud came Shamgar.
It's an incredible verse.
Yeah. After Ehud came Shamgar, son of Anath, who struck down 600 Philistines with an ox goad. He too saved Israel.
Yeah.
Say no more, Shamgar. You're crazy,
Yeah.
but fine. You deserve a verse.
Just a wink at Shamgar there. But can you imagine? Like we're talking about power equivalent to Samson's.
Yeah.
600 Philistines with an ox goad. Like,
what is that exactly?
It's when you're oxen are when you're running oxen, you kind of poke them with this thing.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
like a big stick.
Like a big yeah. But they didn't want to say he struck him down with a big stick. With a big pointy stick.
Yes. The NIV ever so wanting to be true to the word said ox goad rather than big stick.
But amazing, right? And then they don't tell you what kind of peace they had after that.
Yeah.
So I'm told that and I've never taken the time to do this, but if you add up all of the years that they had protection, it's more than 360. Like it's way more, but it's different parts of the empire.
Right.
If you want to say empire, it's not really an empire, but different parts of Israel were given protection at different times.
Right.
So this is the South. This is the South right now that's been given protection for a period of 120 years, and we don't know how long they got under Samgar. Yeah. But it was the Philistines that he took out, and the Philistines are in the middle of their land, and the Moabites and the Ammonites are down south. To the east, I think. I'd say to the east of their land as well.
Yeah, fascinating. So, what a way to start off this period of Judges of like this happened. They go, call out. They're only in subject for 8 years under Othniel, right? It was 8 years.
They had trouble. They were subject for 8 years, and then Othniel gave them freedom for 40 years.
Yeah.
And then Ehud gave him freedom for 80 years.
Yeah. So it's funny that it's just this 8 years of sort of submission. They have 40 years of peace after that. Then they do the same dumb thing again, and they have 80 years of, like, it's almost 2 generations pass in that time almost.
Yeah. But when we look at our own selves, you watch churches rise up, and then it's very strong for a generation or 2 generations, and then it starts weeding off in the generations beyond that.
Yeah, good point, buddy.
So maybe we are very similar in the way we respond to things.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Folks, that's Judges chapter 3. Larry, thanks so much for that. That was fantastic, leading us through that. Interesting to think, you're right, because if we do the math on this, it doesn't quite work. But like Larry said, we're talking about the south of Israel. We're talking about just certain parts of it. And God is, as it says in the start of the book, he's teaching them to fight, and testing them to see whether they'll be obedient. And they fail time and time again. Not unlike we fail time and time again. Anyway, thanks so much for being with us. Larry and I so appreciate the fact that you listen to us week in and week out. Even the weeks that we skip, we even see that people still listen to us on those weeks too. We're trying to catch up on the back catalog, it looks like. So appreciate that very much. We'll be back with you probably next week. We're kind of in this little bit of flux, but I think we'll be back with you next week. And we'll go again on Judges chapter 4. Until then, I was Steve, he was Larry, and this